Look, Trump has been doing a lot to overwhelm and confuse the media and the public about his plans. And maybe down on that list of chaos that he's been creating are the potential changes to two of Biden's biggest successes that, in fact, provide over $66 billion to red states, including creating over 100,000 jobs. So, what if Trump shuts down the fake green economy, as one commenter put it on my channel here? What would happen to those jobs? What would it mean for those red state economies? What would it mean for the rest of the country? Well, thankfully, the geniuses over at Doge haven't tried to hide this information yet, like they have done to dozens of other websites and public data sets that the government previously was sharing. So we have some data to work with here, and boy, is this data dying to tell a story. First, though, we need to talk about these two landmark pieces of legislation, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or BIL, and the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA. First, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, as the name suggests, was drafted and supported by members of both parties, though it got more votes from Democrats. The BIL aims to modernize America's transportation systems, enhance broadband access, and upgrade utilities to foster economic growth and resilience. Now, the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, was more like Biden's baby and basically opposed by anyone that didn't have a D in front of their name. Now, the IRA differs from the BIL in that it seeks to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by about 40% by 2030 through investments in clean energy and climate initiatives such as funding for the energy industry, as well as consumer tax credits on electric vehicles. And if we look at the money by state for the IRA and the BIL, you can see that the top three states here were California, Indiana, and Kentucky. In fact, California, Illinois, and New York were the top three blue states, but those were the only three in the top 10. So most of the money here is going towards red states. But the interesting thing is actually when you look at this on a per capita level, because of course, California and New York, which have a ton of people, get more money, but per capita, it's the red states that stand to benefit even more directly, even kind of more tangibly in those communities. For example, South Korea-based solar manufacturer Q Cells had last year announced a $2.5 billion expansion in Dalton, Georgia, spurring more than 2,500 jobs and helping change a town known as the carpet capital of the world into a destination for clean energy manufacturing. Maybe they'll rename it to the sun capital of the world. Who knows? And in North Carolina, for example, $19.7 billion has been poured into the state, creating 22 clean energy projects and more than 10,000 jobs in solar, recycling, electric vehicle, and battery manufacturing. The investments include a $13.9 billion Toyota Motor North America EV hybrid battery plant slated to open next year. Have you ever wondered why we don't have better data on used EV batteries? Well, I have, and that's where I discovered today's sponsor, Recurrent. Let me show you what Recurrent does, and you'll understand why I'm jealous that I didn't think of this first. Let's say I'm over here at cars.com and I'm looking for a used Tesla near me in San Diego, and I'm scrolling. I actually really like that color. And I find one here like this 2019 Tesla Model 3 mid-range here. Well, I have my Carfax report and I have those kind of things, but I also have this little pill here. It says EV battery rating. I click on that and I get some insights about the range for this EV battery versus what it was new. And then I have a link here to actually get a free battery report. And this is the magic of Recurrent here, is that they are building these EV battery reports, these like really detailed analysis to help people make better buying decisions. You can see the information about the car there. You can see the range score, the seasonal range, the travel range, all that kind of stuff. Just beautifully laid out, is simple to understand, even if you know nothing about how EV batteries work. And if you're an EV owner yourself, like I am, you can connect your car and get this same EV battery report for free, just like I did here with my wife's Model Y. I can see the expected range, the original range, the travel range, the seasonal range, all these great insights here, as well as details about my battery history, which is a new chart they're working on, and this graph, which I love. This is called a control chart. I just love how they presented this, and I'm a big fan of what they do, because also when it comes time to sell your EV, I'm selling mine very soon. Shh. I can actually get an offer from an expert directly through Recurrent with all the best information about the most important part of my EV. So if you're an EV owner, you absolutely need to get Recurrent. Head over to bit.ly/meet-recurrent. Sign up today for free. Get your EV battery report. Let me know how it goes in the comments, and make sure that when it does come time to sell, that you use their service, because it really is just going to give you the most money for your vehicle. And that's, again, what I'm doing real soon. So stay tuned for that. All right, back to the video now. And if you look at this map here, it does a really good job sort of showing exactly where these projects are going into effect. And as you might expect, they're not all on the coasts in these blue states. The majority of them are sort of in the Midwest here. And I'll put a link to this along with all the resources that we talk about in these videos down in the description, like I do always. So you can go dive into this data if you want to see a little bit more. But just looking at the map and where the bubbles are, you can tell that there was some engineering, there was some architecture to this bill or to these bills that would hopefully sustain any kind of political headwinds that may come their way down the road. Now, while Trump may want to completely eliminate Biden from history and just destroy his legacy with eliminating these two big bills, I'm not sure if he'll actually go through with it because of the just $2 to $1 going to the red states versus the blue states. If he were to lose all that support by taking it away, it could really hamper his ability to get anything else done down the road. And, politicians like to gain that support and keep those things rolling so they can get their agendas pushed. But Trump has actually already tried to eliminate provisions of these acts with vague executive orders and have had a lot of trouble with courts blocking a lot of them. And we'll get into that in a second. But what would happen if he did? What would happen if he actually could just wave a magic wand and get rid of law passed by Congress? Well, the IRA actually went into effect 2 years ago, and we have some data on how it's going and what that might mean. Now, this data comes to us from the Environmental Entrepreneurs at e2.org, and this is a group which was founded back in 2000 as a network of over 2,500 businesses that have created over 600,000 jobs in the U.S. and currently manage over $100 billion in capital. So they've got some skin in the game here. So their report shows that across the 2 years since the IRA was passed into law, it's funded over 300 projects and created over 100,000 jobs. And in fact, 68% of those jobs are in red states, with some of the big winners being North Carolina's 9th district with nearly $9.9 billion, represented by Republican Richard Hudson, Georgia's 11th congressional district with $6.6 billion, represented by Republican Barry Loudermilk, and Nevada's 2nd congressional district with $6.6 billion, represented by Republican Representative Mark Amodei. So yeah, these guys have a ton at stake here with the IRA funding. And this is the point in the video where I would like to show you a clip of them bashing Trump from previous years or whatever, but I couldn't find any of that. Here's something I did find that these guys were saying.
Before you take this historic vote today, 1 week before Christmas, I want you to keep this in mind. When Jesus was falsely accused of treason, Pontius Pilate gave Jesus the opportunity to face his accusers. During that sham trial, Pontius Pilate afforded more rights to Jesus than the Democrats have afforded this president in this process.
So the question remains, if Trump asks these guys to vote against their own constituents in their own districts, will they do it? I mean, after looking at all this, I'd give it a 50-50 shot. Honestly, it's a coin toss at this point. But as I mentioned, Trump has already tried to pull back some of these bills and kind of just wave it away with an executive order, which we'll talk about in a second. And the way he's trying to do that is by freezing the funding. So he's looking at actually preventing about $300 billion that has already been allocated for infrastructure and clean energy initiatives to be not handed out. Essentially, Congress said, here's the money, it's awarded, and they passed laws like they do. It was signed by the president at the time, and he's trying to pull that back. And he also vowed to claw back any unspent funds under the IRA that had already been dispersed. These were particularly focused on investments in clean energy sectors, such as electric vehicles and offshore wind, all the typical kind of punching bags for this administration. So this move really aims to roll back the climate-focused provisions that the previous administration already established and were already dispersed. And he also ordered the stop to the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, or NEVI. This is the one that he's, falsely accused of spending $8 billion on 8 chargers and none of them work, whatever. It's all nonsense. I've already debunked it. I'll put a link down in the description for you to go check out if you want to watch that video. But this would essentially prevent, again, funds that have already been promised to states and already been awarded, people that are already working on projects just now not going to get paid. So they're sort of making promises and then doing a take back here, something that he was sort of known for in the real estate world in New York before getting into politics. And then there was also this issue to end the EV mandate, which basically did nothing because no such mandate existed. I was really confused by that one. That was one of the very first things. I think on day one, he wrote an executive order, to end the electric vehicle mandate and bring back whatever. There was no such thing. So it's kind of like they just made this whole thing up to scare people and then play the hero for solving the problem or getting rid of the, killing the dragon or whatever. It's kind of how they backed down against Canada in the tariffs after they received concessions from Canada to help them slow the flow of fentanyl into the US, which sounds like a reasonable deal. That sounds like a win, except for one problem.
He called this off, saying that he had won concessions from both of them, but is there a tangible concession in your view?
Yeah, absolutely. He won the concessions, and part of it is it's a commitment from Trudeau that wasn't there to help with fentanyl, to help with the black market.
Well, he announced the plan
and to secure the border.
He announced that plan though 6 weeks ago, back in December.
Well, at least he's reiterated it and formalized it.
Ooh. That's pretty bad. It turns out these concessions that they got from Canada weren't new, and they were already agreed to under Biden. So yeah, the whole point is to say that many of these orders don't have real teeth on them because they're sort of attacking things that don't exist. But for the others that do have actual teeth and could actually make an impact here, the courts are stepping in to make sure that the rule of law is still being followed. Mostly. For instance, U.S. District Judge John McConnell ordered the unfreezing of federal funding, emphasizing that the administration couldn't hold financial obligations without proper justification. This would be akin to what Nixon tried to do with impoundments back in the 70s before he was impeached, but maybe I'll do a video separately on that later. As well, multiple states and environmental groups have filed lawsuits against the administration's actions, arguing that the funding freezes and the policy rollbacks violate constitutional provisions and existing laws. Now, these legal battles are ongoing, with courts playing a crucial role here in reviewing and potentially overturning the administration's directives. And you'd think this would be pretty simple, right? I'm not a legal expert by any means, but laws passed by Congress and signed by a former president, as far as I know, can't just be waved away by the current president's executive orders. I mean, if that were possible, we wouldn't have a sense of checks and balances that have really given our nation its stability over these past 250 years. But maybe that's a story for Legal Eagle, not this channel. What I want to know, though, is what will actually happen if either of these or both of these are repealed through the legal means. I mean, you'd think that would be easy enough. The Republicans have both sides of Congress and the executive. So what is, stopping them essentially? I mean, the Supreme Court is also on their side. So there's really no reason why they can't actually repeal these things. So if that were to happen, what would the impact be? Well, a study by Energy Innovation, a nonpartisan think tank, projects that a full repeal of the IRA would, by 2035, result in 1.3 million fewer jobs and a $250 billion decrease in gross domestic product. Additionally, households would face a $35 billion increase in energy costs, averaging an extra $240 per house. And if the president's full plan, also known as Project 2025, were to come into effect, that could erase more than 1.7 million jobs and hike electricity prices by $32 billion. So pretty similar to the other analysis there. And the only saving grace here might be that the majority of the funding and jobs lost would harm the very people who voted for this administration. If that happened, the backlash could be substantial enough to actually temper some of the administration's goals around hurting the people and the planet. But what would be really devastating is if they rolled back the billions in oil and gas subsidies. To learn more about that, you have to go check out this video over here where I dove deep into the history of fossil fuel subsidies in the United States. Members, you know where to find me in the forum if you want to chat about this or drop a comment down below. That's it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you back here next time.